Jake Hoffman.
And this is moderately outraged. So this weekend, Jake went to CPAC, while I did not. But nonetheless, by the end of the weekend, we both came to the same conclusion. And that was that Trump should not run in 2024. And before you leave a whole bunch of angry comments, bear with us and hear our reason why he shouldn't run.
Yeah, if you were paying attention to what happened at CPAC, obviously all of the headlines, all of the news comes from Trump's speech. But the main point of that speech is that he kind of alluded to another run in 2024, and a lot of, not a full definite, he's going to run just yet, but at least alluding to that he's open to the idea. And so now it's up to all of the pundits and everybody to make up headlines around whether or not he should or shouldn't, or what he really meant by that.
Like we call speculation porn, as we've termed it.
That's right. But the big piece of CPAC is the straw poll. That's usually where the headlines are derived from. It's whether or not, the people that are actually in attendance of CPAC are supportive of all of the candidates that are going to run for 2024. And Trump won that straw poll 55%. So he still has a majority of the party that would prefer him as president in 2024. Now, when you remove Trump's name from that same question, Ron DeSantis was getting about 40% of the support of the people at CPAC. Now, obviously, hometown hero Ron DeSantis, so a little bit of a bias. You have to take it all with a grain of salt. But those are the front runners in Kristi Noem, and even Donald Trump Jr. scored 8% in the poll. So the question now becomes: should Trump run in 2024, or should he kind of pass the torch along to one of these other people?
Yeah, and I mean, personally, I believe that it is time for Trump to pass the torch. And I understand that people, are deeply connected to Trump and deeply connected to the name and the brand. But here's the thing, is that Trump comes with a lot of baggage, and that's not even necessarily his fault. Like, yes, there's the tweeting and the rhetoric and all of that stuff, but there's also just his name. When you say Trump, it evokes either love or hate and just so much emotion around just the name Trump that at this point you can't remove that. You can't get rid of that emotion that people have. And so if Trump were to be able to pass the torch to someone like, say, Ron DeSantis, who you're going to get the same MAGA, America First policies.
Yeah, and let's talk about that for just a second, because the other big questions in that straw poll were about Trump's policies, his agenda, and his job as president. Well, it's like 97%. It's almost 100% of people in the Republican Party were happy with the policies, they're happy with the agenda, and they're happy with the overall performance.
And keep in mind, a lot of the people at CPAC are not necessarily all the attendees, but it is generally run by establishment Republicans. They, tried to keep out some people who were more, MAGA supporters and more bigger, Trump supporters. Trump wasn't allowed to speak at CPAC when he was running for president in 2016.
Yeah, so I know we're talking a lot about straw polls, and because that's again where we can derive some headlines from. But at the same time, in 2016, Trump boycotted CPAC, and Ted Cruz won the straw poll.
And he ended up with what percent of the vote?
Like 2% in the primary. So it doesn't always mean anything. It is an interesting thing for us to talk about. Obviously, again, a lot of speculation here about whether he's going to do it or not. But the point that should be all Republicans and all the consultants and all of the establishment should really hear is that people like the policy. They like the messaging. They like the things that he was doing behind the scenes. But where people are kind of faltering from, and 55%, 49%, whatever it may be, that kind of the general population, I mean, this is still CPAC, and it's still almost split, but the general population, I think that with the way the media has treated him after this insurrection, in the day at the Capitol, and all of these things, the way it's been branded, the way it has been used to deplatform him from everything, like you were saying, people cannot just get that out of their minds. There's so much baggage to it.
They can't separate the name from all of this other baggage, and and they can't separate the name from the policies, and that's the problem with Trump. So if he were to be president again, we're just going to have 4 more years of the media attacking every conservative in every way they can. If Trump passes the torch, and then say, not that they're not,
as I say, they're going to do it.
They're going to keep doing it anyway. But it'll be even worse than it is already. And if Trump passes the torch, he can then work behind the scenes to fundraise. And then, when he did his speech, he called out the 7 Republicans by name who voted to impeach him. And so he can go and, fundraise and get candidates.
Already is. He's already on his way to make sure that we have people like Liz Cheney out of office.
Exactly. He wants, he can help to get those weak Republicans out of office, those Republicans that are going to vote against, the MAGA era policies. And that's what's important, is that his policies, remain in place. That the movement that he set in motion is already continuing in motion. It is going to continue in motion. He has awoken a generation, an entire, base of people that may not have even been politically involved before, or may have even been, on the left previously. But now they're conservatives, and they're going to stay conservatives as long as those policies remain intact. And that's what's important. And when you have somebody like Ron DeSantis or Kristi Noem, who they're fighting back against cancel culture, they're fighting back against the mainstream media, and that's what's important.
Yeah.
That is what the base wants to see.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit about those people who are coming up in the Republican Party.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've been paying any attention to what we've been saying for the past year or two, and I mean, I could have told you, even without the conference being in Florida, that Ron DeSantis is a favorite over since COVID. And Kristi Noem, a favorite. Why? Why have they separated themselves as top governors in the entire country? One, obviously Florida is a very important state, but South Dakota obviously not quite as the powerhouse that Florida is. So why are they separating themselves? Well, because they actually have stood up to all of the establishment nonsense. They've stood up to the media. They have actually followed the science in dealing with COVID and COVID distribution, the vaccine distribution, all of these different things.
Kristi Noem had a great answer. If you haven't seen it yet, Google it. When they asked her, "Are you going to follow a double mask mandate?" and she went, "No." She just went, "No, people aren't going to wear 2 masks."
Yeah.
And she said, and what she said, and it was a great answer. She said, "I never said that masks don't work. I have never, disputed the science. I've just said that I don't believe in a mandate, that people have individual choices and free will."
Yeah, and the candidates that are willing to stand up and say that are the ones that are going to ascend through the Republican Party, and that is why the two of them are.
And Ron DeSantis was my favorite quote to push back against the media when they asked him, "Why weren't you wearing a mask at the Super Bowl?" He said, "How the hell am I going to drink a beer?" Great.
Yeah.
Like, that is a man that I want to be president.
So,
I will follow that man anywhere.
So our argument for 2024 is that somebody like Ron DeSantis should probably be at the top of the ticket, or Kristi Noem, either one.
Love to see them as a combo ticket.
In combo ticket. If they did that, we're going to get all the same policies. We're going to get the fighting back against the media. We're going to be able to continue. If you look at the policies that have been put in place in Florida, that what Ron DeSantis has been doing, going after big tech censorship, going after China. Just today, they were announcing about how they're going to strengthen all the IP laws to make sure that it's not stolen by China in all of our universities.
And Ron DeSantis also, coincidentally at the same time that our very own Jake Hoffman put forth a petition saying that we need to strengthen
election integrity laws.
Yeah, election integrity laws. Ron DeSantis then announced that we are going to be, putting forth policies to strengthen election integrity laws.
I heard he might even get a little bit of credit for it. But the point is that he is doing things to fight election integrity.
And on the progressive side, he's actually been very pro the environment. He has been doing things to help. He's acknowledged climate change is real. He has been doing what he could to fight the massive algae bloom that was occurring in Florida. And that was what all the liberals said. He's going to destroy the environment, this, that, and the other. And he's done the complete opposite.
Yeah, so if you look at why he is the most popular governor in the country, and
he's
I don't
America's
care
governor.
Well, what the media, not like the guy up in New York who was given an Emmy for being America's governor, who's literally should be in jail at this point for either manslaughter or sexual assault. I'm not sure which one.
Either one.
At this point, you can take your pick.
Yeah, I just want to say real quick, I don't revel in anyone's downfall. I never do. But I will say, just to all the people that told us that, Florida should really be listening and following the guidelines that Cuomo has put forth. We should really be following Governor Cuomo. Should we really? I mean, I hope you guys think about that and, come back to me and let me know what you think now.
Yeah.
That's all.
But, yeah, we won't blow it too much. But my point was that you're going to get a very, very popular, in reality, a moderate governor. But moderate nowadays is far right radical, right?
Yeah.
Somebody who's not going to mandate masks, someone who's going to acknowledge climate change around the state of Florida and sea level rise issues that we have here, fight against the mainstream media and cancel culture, make sure our IP isn't stolen in China. Someone's going to do all that. Apparently, they're far right radicals, right? They're enemy number one. But in reality, they're actually fairly moderate from a policy standpoint.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to see.
But
that's what people want to see.
But even though they're moderate, they still have the MAGA era policies.
Yeah, it's America first.
It's still America first. It's still
Florida first.
It's still populism. It's
Yes.
still populist
Yeah.
policies. So that's what's important to remember, that yes, they are more moderate than maybe somebody who would be considered, truly far right, like a Steve King or something like that, who is actually on the far right. Yes, they're moderate, but they are still populist at the end of the day, and they are still going to carry the torch and carry the movement that Trump set into motion.
Yeah.
And that is
Trump
what's important.
is better. His time is better spent starting a news network if he wants to go do that direction. If he wants to actually build the infrastructure so that conservatives aren't silenced, he has the ability to do that. And if he wanted to start his own social media platform where it's his, that will be the one that we finally all go and follow, because things like Parler and Rumble and Gab, they're all spread apart, and the user interface isn't very good. And Parler, I like the idea of Parler, but like the interface kind of sucks and no one really likes it. So the problem is that you have all these other social medias there. He's better served creating a
Trump media network.
It doesn't need to be called Trump media, but something that exists in which it's actually a good user experience. You're not going to get canceled for doing it. It just follows the First Amendment guidelines of the United States of America for what you can and can't say. And if he does that, and then he puts his weight behind the candidates and actually goes and does rallies, not for just himself, but for the candidates he wants to see, he can spread his influence around the entire country without running for president again. Because running for president draws out such fury from the left.
Absolutely.
He might have gotten the most votes in the entire, the Republican Party has had in a long, long time, but he also had the most votes against him in a long time, because people were polarized and they're fired up about this election.
That's a great point.
So people tend to forget, again, I know a lot of us love him, but at the same time, a lot of people really don't like him, and it's a lot of people. You have to find someone that doesn't come with all the baggage.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a good. When you talk about Trump having a media network and Trump having some sort of network so that conservatives aren't silenced, I think that's a great way to transition to what we also wanted to talk about, which was some of the other big news from CPAC. Was that there was massive amounts of big tech censorship going on.
Yeah.
And and influencers getting kicked out or getting their pages completely taken down.
Yeah, one of the
tell your story.
The piece of the entire theme of CPAC was uncancelled. That was the theme, right? Until the Republican Party actually starts to believe that, and CPAC starts to believe that, we're all going to sit around and start to look for the candidates that are actually going to talk about that, because a lot of people did not receive invites, right? So, Laura Loomer didn't get an invite, Marjorie Taylor Greene didn't get an invite, again, Trump boycotted them in 2016. So these are all people that are not allowed to speak at CPAC. They're not even allowed, don't even get an invite. And then when it comes to people like Laura Boebert from Colorado, who gave a speech on the Second Amendment, everyone that reposted her speech there got I know people that got their accounts suspended for 60 days for reposting it, for inciting violence. I know people that have had, obviously the post just pulled down, censored, all of that stuff. But until the Republican Party as a whole acknowledges that it's doing its own censoring, and it's not standing up for the people who are being censored that they do agree with sometimes, till they get their act together and come together as one and push back entirely on this tech censorship, we're not going to get there. And then until you cancel these masks, until you cancel all of the COVID mandates, all of this other stuff, our good friends over across the bridge over here, DC Drano and Fleckus, as you may know them a little bit more affectionately, they both got trespassed at CPAC for not wearing a mask. I mean, they were thrown out and threatened to be arrested.
And, from what I heard and from what I saw, they weren't, just blatantly walking around not wearing a mask saying, we don't care. They had masks on and then took them off to take a photo because people didn't want a picture with them with a mask on. That's insane. And quite frankly, as we were saying earlier, CPAC is the establishment Republicans part. That is their function. It's not Turning Point. So they don't really like guys like DC Drano and like Fleckus, who have been Trump supporters and have been outspoken and outspoken against some people within the Republican Party. So quite frankly, I think that's why they got kicked out. And
but not even just that. Then his Twitter was suspended for posting the video about it. And so
that is just mind blowing.
So what it says to me is that the Republicans are still trying to keep everybody in line. They're still trying to keep this establishment control over the party, but the party and the base and all of these people, we are against a few people at the top, right? Liz Cheney, the other 6 people that were named that are going to get primaried very, very hard.
Which Liz Cheney, let me speak on Liz Cheney for a minute. I think it's interesting that her name comes up right as we're dropping bombs into Syria. I'm just gonna say, wow, sounds like Cheney era policies all back over again. So progressives, are you happy with Joe Biden now? Are you happy? Don't think so. If you are, if you're going to defend him for this, then you really aren't as progressive as you wanted to make yourself seem.
Yeah. But the point is that until CPAC, until the Republican Party, until everybody comes together and says, we are actually going to fight for being uncancelled. We are actually going to fight against big tech censorship. We're actually going to do something about it, not advocate for it against the people that you're supposedly standing up for. You have to have the mindset and the ideology that, again, free speech is free speech, not we won't let people do this, we won't let people do that. We need to do something. And again, I do want to thank the Hyatt. They got a lot of flack for not.
I was about to say, so now from the out, so he's talking about, the Republican Party, what they need to do to not censor their own. From the outside, though, it is more important than ever for the Republican Party to come together to fight back against, liberal and progressives, trying to censor, Republicans as a unit, because liberals aren't distinguishing between this is a good conservative, this is a bad conservative. They're saying the Hyatt held a conservative event. #cancel Hyatt. That was something that was trending. That was something that people wanted.
And all this nonsense about Nazi symbolism and things like that. I mean,
it's a stage. It was a stage. It was a stage.
It was a stage. I mean, they had to pull hamstrings to stretch that hard. But the actuality, by the way, if you want real CPAC, the real CPAC is a bunch of people out at the pool going down slides like I was doing, like our log cabin friends getting pedicures by the pool. I mean, that's actually CPAC. There's so much diversity there that it's actually crazy compared to what the media will report on it for you. But this is the thing. Again, we have to stand up together and say we are actually going to fight back against big tech censorship, because if you just allow Donald Trump to get pushed around, if you just allow for everybody to they pick and choose who can be online and who can't be online, they're going to eventually come for you. They're eventually going to pick and choose. You're gone too. And we're all, by association, white supremacist, insurrectionist, bigot, all this. You just throw all of those things together, and because you attended a conference, they're trying to shame the entire country from associating with the Republican Party by tying these false narratives to an entire party of 75, 80 million people that actually feel the same way because we like the policies.
And, at the end of the day, it's not just, even if you don't like Trump. I know people who despise Donald Trump but still love the Second Amendment. And, when you are having someone who is supporting the Second Amendment and their speech getting taken down, that is scary. Because, again, you don't have to like Trump. You don't have to like anything about him or his policies. You can be liberal, but still want to believe in the Second Amendment. And if you post something about, I like my guns, I want to own a gun, anything like that, you're inciting violence now, that is a dangerous precedent to set. So just because you don't like the conservatives or you don't like the conservative movement, you should be aware of what precedent, this type of censorship is setting. Yeah. And, I really think, to close, what's important here is that we shouldn't, as conservatives, be so worried about the name of the candidate who is going to be running in 2024.
Yep.
What we need to be concerned about is, does that candidate, whoever he or she may be, support the policies that Donald Trump had, support the movement that Donald Trump had set into place? Will they fight back against cancel culture, against big tech censorship? And will they support the policies that the majority of conservatives really, really love?
And will they not be some neoliberal, terrible Washington lobbyists like Nikki Haley or somebody like that? We don't want those type of establishment, boring Republicans. We've talked about this for a long time. You need somebody outspoken, somebody who's going to stand up for people, not somebody who is wishy-washy. Because the fact that her name's even around, we need to have a conversation about that, because the Republican Party is not behind those type of candidates.
Yeah. So thank you so much. This was Moderately Outraged. I want to say thank you to BizPac Review, Conservative News Today, and American Wire for allowing us on your platform. We appreciate you so much.
I want to thank the Hyatt for hosting us all weekend in Orlando. We have started an entire movement called Keep CPAC in Florida, because we don't think it should be back in DC anymore. Everyone had way more fun in Florida.
Yeah, of course. It's been a beautiful weekend down here. If you haven't been to Florida, come down and enjoy some sunshine. So thank you so much, and have a great night.
Make America Florida.